We want a peaceful evening, don't bring the kid, my mom texted. I said, okay, and stayed home. That same night, I removed my name from the account paying my sister's tuition. One morning came with 34 missed calls and a message from my dad, call me now. My mom sent me a text at 7 p.m. on a Thursday. I know the exact time because I screenshot it. You know why? Because when someone writes you something that changes your entire relationship with them, you save it. You save it like evidence. The text said, we want a peaceful evening, don't bring the kid. That was it. No hey sweetie, no we love you but, just, don't bring the kid. The kid. She was talking about my 3-year-old daughter, Poppy. Her own granddaughter. And that text. That was my invitation to their 30th wedding anniversary dinner. Well, not even an invitation really. More like a warning label. My name is Tessa, I'm 32 and I need to tell you this story because honestly, I still can't believe it happened. And I promise you what I did next, you won't see it coming. Let me back up a little. My parents, Gloria and Raymond, are the kind of people who care deeply about appearances. I mean deeply. Their house looks like a Pottery Barn catalog. Their lawn? Immaculate. Their Christmas cards? Professionally photographed every single year since 1996. And their anniversary dinners are basically their version of the Oscars, except the only award being given out is Best Performance of a Happy Family. Now here's the thing about me. I'm not exactly the quiet one. Never have been. I talk too much, I laugh too loud, and yeah, my toddler is a toddler. She throws goldfish crackers on the floor and sometimes screams in public for absolutely no reason. Revolutionary behavior for a 3-year-old, I know. But my parents, they act like Poppy is some kind of natural disaster. Every time I bring her to a family event, my mom gets this pinched look on her face like she just bit into a lemon. And my dad just sighs. That long, dramatic sigh that says, why did you bring the chaos with you? As if their own children never made a mess. As if I came out of the womb holding a napkin and speaking in a whisper. So when that text came in, I wasn't even surprised. Hurt. Absolutely. Surprised. Well, this had been building for years. Let me tell you about my sister Brooke. Brooke is 22, finishing up her last year at UNC Chapel Hill. She's the baby. The golden child. The one who can do no wrong. And look, I love Brooke. Let me be very clear about that. This isn't about her. Brooke is sweet, she's hardworking, and she didn't ask to be the favorite. But she is. She just is. And you want to know the funniest part? I'm the one paying for it. Literally. 2 years ago, my parents came to me and said Brooke's tuition was getting out of hand. They asked. No, actually they didn't ask. They told me it would be really helpful if I contributed. At the time I'd just gotten promoted to regional manager at my logistics company, and I was making good money. I'm not rich, okay, but I'm comfortable. So I said yes. I set up a joint account and started putting $1,400 a month toward Brooke's tuition and expenses. $1,400. Every single month. Do you know what I could have done with that money? I could have taken Poppy to Disney World 4 times. I could have redone my kitchen. I could have just, I don't know, had it. In my own account. For my own daughter. But I did it because that's what family does, right? That's what I believed. You help. You sacrifice. You show up. Except apparently, showing up is exactly what they didn't want me to do. So there I was standing in my kitchen reading that text and my husband Derek walks in. He takes one look at my face and goes, what did they do now? That man knows my family. He's been watching this show for 8 years. I showed him the phone. He read it. Read it again. Then he set it down on the counter and said, so what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to say okay. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Just okay. Just okay. I texted my mom back 2 letters. Okay. That's it. Didn't argue. Didn't beg. Didn't explain that Poppy is a human child who deserves to see her grandparents. Just okay. And you know what my mom replied? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because that was the answer she wanted. Now here's where it gets interesting. Would you have done the same thing or would you have fought back right then and there? Because honestly, part of me wanted to drive over there and cause a scene. But I didn't. I had a better idea. See, I sat down on my couch that night. Poppy was already asleep. Derek was watching basketball. And I opened my banking app. I stared at that joint tuition account. The one with my name on it, the one I'd been feeding $1,400 a month like clockwork. And I thought about what my parents had just told me. They wanted peace and quiet. They wanted an evening without me and my daughter. They wanted comfort. Well, comfort costs money. And I was done being the one who paid for everyone else's comfort while getting none of my own. I removed my name from the account. Every automatic payment, every scheduled transfer, gone. At 11:16 p.m. on a Thursday night, while my parents were probably clinking champagne glasses and congratulating themselves on 30 years of marriage, I quietly pulled the financial rug out from under them. And I went to bed. I slept like a baby actually. Better than I had in months. Derek rolled over at some point and asked if I was okay, and I said, I'm fantastic. And I meant it. But I knew, oh I knew, the morning was coming. And when it came it was going to come loud. What I didn't know was exactly how fast everything would unravel. You think your family knows your value? You think the people who raised you understand what you bring to the table? Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have absolutely no idea. And sometimes you have to show them. So here's what happened next. I woke up the following morning, a Friday, around 7 a.m. I made myself coffee. I made Poppy some scrambled eggs. Normal morning. Completely normal. And then I glanced at my phone. 34 missed calls. 30. 21 from my mom. 11 from my dad. 2 from Brooke. And 1 text from my dad, all caps, call me now. I looked at that screen for a solid minute. Poppy was in her high chair babbling about a cartoon. The sun was coming through the kitchen window. And my phone was practically vibrating off the counter. You know what I did? I poured more coffee. I sat down with my daughter. And I let it ring. Because here's what my parents didn't understand yet but were about to learn. You don't get to exclude someone and still benefit from their generosity. You don't get to tell your daughter she's too much and then expect her to keep being enough when you need her. They wanted a peaceful evening without me? Fine. But peace has a price. And they were just starting to find out what that price was. I know, you're probably thinking, Tessa, that's cold. Maybe it was. But tell me honestly, wouldn't you have done the same thing? Because I truly want to know what you think. Was I wrong? Or was this a long time coming? Either way, what happened when I finally picked up that phone? That's where this story really takes a turn. And trust me, my mom's reaction? I genuinely did not see it coming. I let the phone ring 3 more times before I even touched it. Poppy was smearing egg on her face and giggling, and honestly, that sound was more important to me than whatever my father had to say. But eventually I picked up. Not because I felt guilty. Because I was ready. My dad didn't even say hello. The first words out of his mouth were, "What did you do to the account?" Not "good morning." Not "how's Poppy?" Not "hey, sorry about last night." Just straight to the money. And if that doesn't tell you everything about my family's priorities, I don't know what will. I took a sip of my coffee, deliberately slow, and said, "What account?" Don't play games with me, Tessa. The tuition account is empty. The automatic payments are cancelled. Brooke just got a notification from the bursar's office that her balance is overdue. I said, that sounds stressful. Dead silence. Like you could hear the man blinking. Then he said, "Are you serious right now?" "Completely serious, Dad." I removed myself from the account. "You can't just do that." "Actually, I can. My name was on it. My money was in it. And I decided I'd rather spend it on my own family. You know, the one that apparently isn't welcome at your dinner table." He stammered for a second. That was new. My dad is a man who always has something to say. Raymond Carter does not stammer. But that morning, he was tripping over his own words like a kid caught cheating on a test. Then he pulled out the classic line. "You ready for this?" He said, "This has nothing to do with last night." Nothing to do with last night. Can you believe that? The man actually tried to separate the two things, as if I didn't have a functioning brain. As if I pulled $1,400 a month out of a joint account for fun on a random Thursday night. Total coincidence. I said, "It has everything to do with last night. And the night before that. And every holiday, every birthday, every single event where you and Mom made me feel like I was an inconvenience for existing. I'm done." He went quiet again. Then real low, almost like a threat, he said, "Your mother is going to call you. She already did. 21 times. I saw. Then pick up when she calls again. Maybe. Maybe not. Depends on whether she opens with an apology or an accusation. Based on her track record, I'm not optimistic." He hung up on me. My own father. Hung up. And do you think that hurt? Yeah. Of course it did. I'm not made of stone. But I was also tired of pretending that their behavior was acceptable just because they were my parents. Being someone's child doesn't mean being their punching bag. Right? Tell me you agree with me on that. About 20 minutes later, my phone lit up again. I let it ring twice, then answered. Now, my mom, Gloria, is a different kind of difficult than my dad. My dad is blunt. He says what he means and it stings, but at least you know where you stand. My mom, Gloria, is surgical. She doesn't yell. She doesn't raise her voice. She uses this calm, disappointed tone that somehow makes you feel like you're 6 years old and you just tracked mud on her white carpet. She started with, "Tessa, honey, I don't understand why you're being so dramatic." Dramatic. See, that's her favorite word for me. I could save a kitten from a burning building and she'd call it dramatic. I could quietly set a boundary and she'd say I was causing a scene. It's her way of making me the problem no matter what I do. I said, I'm not being dramatic, Mom. I made a financial decision. A financial decision that affects your sister's education. Do you understand that? Brooke could lose her enrollment. Then I guess you and Dad will have to cover it. She's your daughter. She's your sister. And Poppy is your granddaughter. But that didn't stop you from telling me to leave her at home like she's a piece of luggage. Silence. A long one this time. Then she said something that honestly made my jaw drop. She said, "That's not fair, Tessa. We just wanted one nice evening. Is that so much to ask? One nice evening. Without me. Without my child." And she genuinely didn't see the problem. That's the part that gets me. She wasn't pretending. She actually believed she was being reasonable. I said, "You're right, Mom. It's not too much to ask. And it's not too much for me to ask to be treated like I matter. So I guess we're even." She started to say something but I cut her off. I said, "I have to go. Poppy needs me." And I hung up. Now here's where it gets complicated because about an hour later Brooke called. And Brooke is not the enemy in this story. I want to make that very clear. She called me and she was crying. "Tessa, what's happening? I got an email saying my account has an outstanding balance. Mom and Dad are freaking out. Nobody's telling me anything." My heart cracked a little, honestly. Because Brooke didn't do anything wrong. She's just a kid trying to finish college. She didn't send that text. She didn't exclude Poppy. She's caught in the middle of something she didn't create. I said, "Brooke, listen to me. I love you. This isn't about you. But I need you to ask Mom and Dad why I did what I did. Ask them what happened last night. And then you'll understand." She sniffled and said, "Did they do something to you again?" She said again. Which means even Brooke. The golden child, the favorite, the one who's shielded from everything, even she knows. She knows how they treat me. She's seen it. She just never had to deal with the fallout before. I told her, "Yeah, they did. And I'm sorry you're caught in this, but I can't keep setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. That's not fair to me or Poppy." She was quiet for a second and then she said, "I get it. I don't like it, but I get it." That conversation with Brooke was the hardest one. Harder than my dad. Harder than my mom. Because the people who hurt you, they deserve the consequences. But the innocent people who get caught in the blast, that keeps you up at night. Do you know what I mean? Have you ever had to make a choice that was right for you but hurt someone you love? Because it's the worst feeling in the world. Now, the person who kept me sane through all of this? My cousin Nadine. Nadine is my dad's brother's daughter and she's basically the sister I chose. She's 2 years older than me, lives in Raleigh, and she's the kind of person who shows up at your door with wine and a plan. I called her that afternoon and before I could even finish the first sentence she said, "Oh, they finally pushed you too far, didn't they?" I said, "Nadine, I cut off the tuition money." She literally cheered. Like out loud. She said, "Finally. Tessa, I've been waiting for you to do something like this for years. They walk all over you and you just take it." I know. No, you don't know because if you knew you would have done this a long time ago. Your parents have been treating you like a second-class citizen since Brooke was born, and everyone in this family sees it except them. That hit me hard. Because when someone outside your immediate family confirms what you've been feeling, it suddenly becomes real. It's not in your head. It's not you being sensitive. It's a pattern. And other people have noticed. Nadine told me to hold my ground. She said, "Don't you dare cave. Not this time. Let them feel what it's like without you. Let them sit with the bill and the silence and the empty chair. And when they come crawling back, because they will, you make sure they come correct." I laughed. First real laugh I'd had all day. I said, "What if they don't come back?" She said, "Then you'll know exactly where you stand. And that's valuable too." 3 days passed. 3 whole days of silence from my parents. No calls. No texts. Nothing. And I'm not going to lie, those 3 days were brutal. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach flipped. Every notification I thought, is this it? Is this the apology? But it never was. Then on Monday Brooke called again. She said, "Mom and Dad had a huge fight last night. Dad's saying they need to take a loan to cover my tuition. Mom's blaming you. They're both a mess." Alone. My parents, Gloria and Raymond, the people who spend $300 on a single dinner reservation, who drive matching BMWs, who remodeled their kitchen last year for no reason other than they didn't like the backsplash, now had to consider taking out a loan because they actually had to pay for their own daughter's education. And you know what? They could afford it. Let me be clear about that. They weren't broke. They weren't struggling. They were just so used to my money that the thought of using their own felt like poverty. That's what bothered them. Not that Brooke might suffer. Not that I was hurt. The money. The inconvenience. Brooke said, Tessa, Mom keeps saying you're punishing her. I said, I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. She doesn't see it that way. She doesn't have to. But I do. That Tuesday night, Derek and I were putting Poppy to bed. She was holding this stuffed rabbit she loves. She calls it Bun Bun. Yes, I know, it's painfully cute, and she looked up at me and said, Mama, are we going to Grandma's house soon? I almost lost it. Right there. Because Poppy doesn't know what's happening. She doesn't know that her grandmother thinks she's too loud. She doesn't know that her existence is considered an inconvenience. He just wants to see Grandma. He just wants to be loved. I kissed her forehead and said, We'll see, baby. Derek put his hand on my shoulder after we left her room. He said, You're doing the right thing. Am I? Yes. And when this is over, they'll either be better or they'll be gone. Either way, you win. I wanted to believe him. But that night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I kept thinking, what if they never come around? What if I just blew up my family over a text message? But then I remembered the text. Don't bring the kid. And I knew. I didn't blow anything up. They lit the match. I just stopped putting out their fires. Something big was about to happen though. Because on Wednesday morning I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. And when I answered, the voice on the other end said something that changed everything. And honestly, I still get chills thinking about it. But that part of the story, let me tell you, it's where everything shifts. You think you know where this is going? I promise you don't. The voice on the phone belonged to my Aunt Renee, my mom's older sister. Now Aunt Renee and my mom haven't spoken properly since 2015. They had some falling out over my grandmother's estate and basically became strangers. So when I heard her voice, my stomach dropped because I assumed someone had died. Nobody died. Aunt Renee said, Tessa, I heard what happened. Brooke called me. Brooke. My baby sister went behind everyone's back and called our estranged aunt. I did not see that coming. Not from the girl who spent her entire life staying neutral to keep the peace. Aunt Renee said, I need you to know something. What your mother did to you. She did the exact same thing to me. For years. I was never polished enough, never quiet enough. And when I finally pushed back, she cut me off and told everyone I was the problem. I slid down my kitchen cabinet and sat on the tile floor. Because what she was describing was my life. Same patterns. Same tactics. Same way of making you feel insane for having normal human emotions. Then she said something that shattered me. She said, if nobody stops this, Poppy will grow up thinking that's how love works. That was the line. I could handle being mistreated. I'd been doing it for 32 years. But my daughter believing she needs to shrink herself to be loved? Oh, never. I thanked Aunt Renee and she said one last thing. You're not dramatic, Tessa. You're awake. And that terrifies them. After that call I felt different. Not angry. Not sad. Just clear. Like the fog finally lifted. But I didn't have to make the next move. Because Thursday morning, exactly 1 week after that anniversary text, my doorbell rang. My mom, standing on my porch. No makeup, hair pulled back, wearing an old sweater I recognized from years ago. She looked small. Gloria Carter, the woman who irons her pajamas, looked like she hadn't slept in days. I opened the door but didn't step aside. She said, Can I come in? Depends. Are you here to talk or to lecture? Her chin wobbled. I had never seen that happen before. Not once in my life. He said, To talk. Please. We sat at my kitchen table and she started. She said, We went to that dinner. The anniversary. It was quiet. Nobody spilled anything. Nobody interrupted the toast. It was exactly what I asked for. She paused. And it was awful. She said she kept staring at the empty chair where I would have been. She kept thinking about Poppy stealing bread from the basket and my loud laugh that she was always shushing. She said she missed every single bit of it. I didn't respond. I needed her to sit in that feeling. The silence. The absence. The ache of wanting someone you pushed away. Then she said, I called Renee last night. Brooke gave me her number. And Renee told me things I didn't want to hear. About how I treated her. About how our mother treated both of us the same way. She stopped. Took a breath. I swore I'd never become her. And here I am. I'm not going to pretend one kitchen conversation erased 32 years of damage. Life doesn't work that way. But I saw something in my mother's eyes that I'd never seen before. She was actually seeing herself. Maybe for the first time ever. I said, Do you understand why I pulled the money? She nodded. It wasn't about the money. No. It was about Poppy. And you. It was about the fact that you made loving me feel like a chore. She broke down. Not her usual polite dabbing with a tissue crying. Ugly crying. And Gloria Carter does not ugly cry. But she did that day with Poppy's crayon drawings taped to the fridge behind her. She said, I'm so sorry, Tessa. You're not too much. You never were. Then my dad showed up. Apparently Mom told him she was coming, and Raymond Carter doesn't miss important meetings. He sat across from me, stiff and uncomfortable, and said, I should have seen the pattern. I should have stopped it. Instead I went along with it because it was easier. Most honest thing he'd ever said to me. 32 years, and that was the first truly honest sentence. He said, I don't want to lose you. And I don't want Poppy growing up without her grandparents. I said, then don't give her a reason to. Things didn't become perfect overnight. My parents started therapy together, which was basically a miracle. My mom reconnected with Aunt Renee after almost a decade. Brooke graduated from UNC in May, and I was back on the tuition account by February, but on my terms. My parents covered 60%. I covered 40%. Nobody treated me like an ATM. At Brooke's graduation, Poppy ran across the lawn in a little blue dress and knocked over someone's folding chair. My mom picked her up, kissed her cheek, and said, That's my wild girl. My wild girl. Not the kid. Not the problem. My wild girl. We hosted Thanksgiving that year. My parents came. Brooke came. Aunt Renee came. Nadine came too, obviously, because she'd never miss my sweet potato casserole or a chance to say, I told you so, at least 4 times. Poppy sat at the big table, not in another room, not hidden away, and spilled cranberry sauce on the tablecloth within 5 minutes. Nobody said a word. Mom just handed her a napkin and smiled. That's the ending. Not a fairy tale. My parents are still learning. I'm still learning. But we're doing it together, and that's more than I ever expected. Sometimes I think about those 5 words. Don't bring the kid. They almost broke my family apart. But they also forced all of us to look at ourselves and decide what kind of family we actually wanted to be. Turns out we wanted to be the messy kind. The loud kind. The kind where a little girl knocks over chairs and nobody cares because she's loved exactly as she is. If you made it this far, thank you. Really. It means a lot that you stayed for the whole thing. If any of this felt familiar, or if you've been through something similar, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Tell me if you think I was right or if you would have handled it completely differently. I'm curious, no judgment. If you liked it, a like would mean the world. And if something didn't sit right, that's fine too. Drop your thoughts below. I'm here for the honest conversations, not the perfect ones. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves.